Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ladies Power Lunch show called Grow Your Business Smarter, Live Your Optimal Life. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really excited to share with you today our very special guest. Her name is Jen Jones, and she is the author of this amazing book called Intropreneur. It's a bestseller. It's an international bestseller for a reason. It talks about how to be an entrepreneur, how to be the best entrepreneur that you can be as far as networking and getting your business out there. But it's specially written for the entrepreneur who might not be the most outgoing. She or he might be a little bit introverted. And how do you, as an introvert, get your voice heard above the extroverts and the ambiverts out there? It's really an interesting conundrum. And so I was very excited when Jen published this book because it really explains the way that I think all humans should be networking. It really explains about getting that one-on-one connection. So I'm excited to share Jen with you. I also want to say that I want to say two things. I want to say that we welcome you to come on and be a part of our community. We're having conversations like this every single day over in our Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group. And so I would invite you to come on over and be a part of that. Just go to growsmarternotharder.com/Facebook. Also want to remind you that if you want to join us in person, if you want to take this party to the kind of party where we can hold hands and hug each other, come on over to the Ladies Power Lunch Spring Summit, which is going to be on March 20th. We're going to be in Farmington, Connecticut. And if you want more information about that, you know where to go. growsmarternotharder.com/ticket. So welcome, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this new series that we've started, which is focused a lot on how we can be unbreakable in our business. If the last 3 years has taught us anything, it is that the winds of time are always changing. And sometimes it might mean that things aren't going exactly as we had planned. It doesn't look exactly like it does on our planner, on our vision board, on all the places where we plan our lives. Sometimes we have to pivot, sometimes we have to bend. But when we're doing all of this, what we need to remember is, what does it take for us to be unbreakable? What does it take for our businesses to have the kind of foundation that can stand the test of time? And so these speakers that I'm bringing in to talk to us, this is where we're going to be focusing. So Jen, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And will you share with everybody who you are and the amazing things that you're doing in the world?
All right. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talk about the book and about all the fun stuff that we do. So, Jen Jones, and I am a realtor. I'm a speaker and author of Intropreneur, Building Your Business as an Introverted Entrepreneur. And I just love working with introverted women entrepreneur, figure out, what lights them up and what is something that they can get off the table. It's one of those things where we look at what is the best use of our time and what is most aligned. Does it follow our natural gifts, or are we pushing? Are we letting things happen, or are we pushing? And so I love to talk with introverted entrepreneurs all over the country about what is it that their gifts are and how are they using it in their business. And so that's what Intropreneur is about. It does, like I think you said was, anyone can read it, anyone can get value from it, but it was written for the Intropreneur, for someone who maybe is a little bit more quiet, not quite as extroverted and wanting to be out there. And so it's my gift to the world. Right now, I'm sure there'll be more book gifts to the world. I'm also a mom and wife. I have 3 kiddos. 2 are basically adults, and a little guy. So we live in Massachusetts, and enjoy the warmer weather in the summertime.
I also do enjoy warmer weather. So it's hilarious that I live here in Connecticut. But anyway, that's a story for a whole other day when we get our dear friend Lori on the show and get her to talk to us about our geographical soulmate. And maybe we might find that I need to move. Awesome. Can you share, Jen? Because folks might not know your journey. How did you get to doing this work?
Yeah, so it sort of just fell into place. So back in 2019, I was doing a lot of networking. There were a lot of new women's networking groups around. So I was going in person and just networking, which I actually enjoy the smaller group networking. And I say smaller, less than 30 people or so, actually is probably most comfortable for me. 20 or so is probably better, but I was doing it anyway because I was building up my real estate business and wanted to really get to know new people. And so that's what I was doing in 2019. And then towards, the end of summer, I kept hearing a lot of people, talk to me about, women's networking groups. And I said, you know what, I'm going to start one online because I know people in person and I know people who have online businesses, and was like, I'm going to do like a video series. So I took 16 speakers and put together a video series. And it was really the Facebook group. It was free. It was sort of just hobby of, this is what I want to do for people, called Connect and Elevate. Where we connect, we all elevate. And it took off from there. By the time 6 months rolled around, it was like COVID. And it was like, okay, well, what can I do to continue this, bringing women together? And as I was thinking about things, I was like, geez, I had a lot of people talk to me about networking. They didn't want to come out at night. Once they were done work, they, were done. They were done. They were ready to really become a hermit for the rest of the day. And then during the day ones, it was like, oh, well, I just don't want to, I don't know anyone there. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know if I should go network there. So it was a lot of people that I look back and was like, I think my audience is introverts because I'm one. So how I define introvert is someone who just wants to go inward and rejuvenate their energy, where an extrovert goes outward and goes and hangs out with a bunch of people. So that's very to the very base of how I define it. And that's how Connect and Elevate sort of shifted into this intropreneur world.
That's really interesting, and I love how organically everything came together and how you're in service of other people who are just like you. So I like to define myself as an ambivert because I do get some energy from being in group, but I also do absolutely need to have my alone time. So I need both in order for me to be at my best. And I feel as though the principles that you lay out in your book, Intropreneur, they apply to me perfectly and to just about anybody. So I recommend getting this book. Go on Amazon, download it. Get the Kindle copy, get the paperback. It's really, really a great book, well written, well published, and I absolutely recommend it. So Jen, one of my mentors likes to say that words, they're okay, but stories really, really help us to get to the heart of things. And so I was wondering, could you share with us a story that really, really, it could be your story, it could be a story of a client that really, really cements this idea of how we have to pay attention to our own energy in order for us to be able to be unbreakable in our lives and in our businesses.
So yeah, thinking about how many stories I have in my head, we'll pull out one. And it was a client that I worked with VIP. And we really went through, what is it that, brings you energy? What depletes your energy? And, as we were talking about networking, this is a big one, right? Is that we're business owners. I don't want to say we have to network because no one has to do anything, but it is a good opportunity to get referrals. It's a good opportunity to build new relationships. And it's a good opportunity to just have other business women around you when you're like, I can't do this anymore. So networking, there is a place for it in my mind. And this client was networking everywhere. A very similar story, right? Networking everywhere. And she was working Saturdays. So not only was she spending Monday through Friday, she also was then working with clients on Saturday. And she had, and she was a mom, she was a wife, so she had other obligations, not just her business. And as we were talking, it was more of a conversation of how can I use my energy better? How can I use my time better? Because she knew that she would not be able to sustain this like Monday through Saturday for very long unless she changed some things. And so what we did was we evaluated one, where are you networking? What kind of relationships do you have in those networking places? Do you, how much do you pay? Have you gotten a return on investment? So we sort of went through some of that stuff. And then we talked about how are you keeping your energy up? And, there's these opportunities throughout the day where we can sort of stop for a few minutes. I say a few, but maybe a half an hour, where we can try to rejuvenate our energy. So what we tried to do was, instead of time blocking, because like myself, who doesn't like time blocking, it just doesn't work for me. It was find an opportunity throughout the day to keep that white space in your calendar so that you can spend time on yourself. And maybe that's a quick walk. Maybe that's a breathing exercise. Maybe it's sitting and listening to a 15-minute guided meditation. So not every day, because she didn't have that in her schedule to be able to do that, because she was, working with clients and networking. She didn't have a whole lot of time to do that. But what it did do was give her the opportunity to, on Friday afternoon, was to actually, she stopped work at 12:30, and she was able to spend time on herself, spend time on her house, her family, whatever she wanted to do to rejuvenate her energy. And then her Saturdays, instead of having 6 8-hour days, she didn't cut them in half, but she was able to cut off a couple of hours because she was rejuvenated to go into that Saturday. And she was very focused and got things done very systematically, and was able to walk out the door an hour or two earlier than she normally would have scheduled for herself. And so that's a story of, being able to see what is on your plate and how can you fit in energy rejuvenation so that you can continue the day and continue the week and wrap up wrap up your day as efficiently as possible so that you can have time with yourself.
I love that story because at the very beginning of you sharing the story, I was thinking to myself, is she telling a story about me? Is she putting my story out on Front Street? I relate to that so much. And I would ask our viewers, can you relate? Can you see how you also are doing things that you could perhaps do a different way? Because, Jen, the outcome that we get when we actually make time for ourselves in this way, what's the golden zone that shows up for us?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What's the outcome that we
Oh,
get when we actually take time to focus on ourselves?
I'm like shaking my head and I'm like, was that a question? When we take time, when we take time for ourselves, if you haven't, then you don't know, but you know where we're going with this. When we take time for ourselves, we're more focused, we feel better, we feel as though we're lighter, we're grounded, we're not like up in our head trying to figure everything out. When we're able to take time for ourselves, it gives us the opportunity to just work better, live better, and be able to, not go into burnout. I've talked to a lot of women recently over the last, well, actually year or so, talking about burnout. And, when we're not taking care of ourselves, that's really the end. That's the end where you're like really at the bottom of the barrel and you need to make some big changes. So when we're starting to see some of the signs, maybe it's time to start shifting so we don't end up, at the bottom of the barrel going, what do I do now? Or in the hospital.
And I've mentioned on this show before about how I went into burnout and how I had to have two surgeries and how I got an autoimmune diagnosis because of really not putting myself on the list. So, more than perhaps a lot of your clients, I can really, really, truly relate to the benefits of focusing in just because I've been there and I'm like trying to tell everybody, no, pull yourself back before you get to that extreme, please. Jen, you share with us some really outstanding do's and don'ts when it comes to taking care of our energy and being energy first in our life and in our business. You mentioned about not ignoring the signs. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so not ignoring the signs. So when we're, maybe, and this is like a real life Jen story, you're sitting in the bathroom with the door shut, crying because you're so overwhelmed and you just can't seem to get out of your own way. It's really important to, that's a sign. That's a big sign. You're exhausted, you can't focus. These are all signs that something needs to shift and change to take care of you and your energy. So those are my few signs that I would say, when you're can't concentrate, when you feel very foggy, when you're making mistakes, whether it's sending an email or sending an email to the wrong person, whatever it is, it's just those are some of the signs where it's like I need to stop and evaluate how am I going to rejuvenate my energy so that I can be the best version of myself.
And some of us, we skip over the signs, don't we?
Yeah.
We just take that licking and keep ticking, just keep going, even when the signs are saying, hey, over here, pay attention to yourself. You also mentioned don't lie to yourself. What does that mean?
So don't lie to yourself. It sort of goes back to like, all the signs are over here and they're like yelling and screaming, but you're like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm good. I can do this. There are times in our business and life where we do what I'll call a sprint, right? Where we are all out. We need to get something done. It's a short period, whatever that is, period of time is, and you're going to get it done. I've done it several times, but there's also rejuvenation at the end of that, sometimes
Yes,
even at the beginning of that. So just really don't lie to yourself in a sense of you can't go on forever like this because you will end up in burnout.
absolutely. You mentioned too that we should not underestimate who we are.
Mm, yes.
What does that mean?
So don't underestimate who you are is, we're more than our business. We're more than just being a mom. We're more than just being a wife. It's more than that. It's time to really look at ourselves and say, like, I've accomplished a lot in my lifetime and I've accomplished a lot in my life and it's time to shine. So don't underestimate what you can do with your life if you're in the best energy possible. If we're only running on 50% energy all the time, well, one, we're not giving ourselves 100%, but we're not giving the world 100%. And so when we're at 50 or whatever number you can pick out of the sky, we're more than that. And so just remember that you're worth it. You deserve it, and you will be a better human being by taking time for yourself.
You heard it here first, folks. Don't underestimate what is possible when we're running at 100% energy. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. You talk about do in your do's, you talk about paying attention to our energy levels daily.
Mhm.
Say a little bit more about how we can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. So I when I first started talking about energy, it wasn't as formal as I talk about it now because it was more of when I realized it or when I was in awareness, oh, okay, yeah, I should go do this. And then I came up with a plan, right? It's like evaluating your energy. How did I feel today? Maybe it's 3 times a day. It's really
Mhm.
looking at how can you pay more attention daily to your energy levels and connect them to what you're doing or what you're not doing. So, there were times when like interacting with my daughter, depleted my energy significantly. And now it's not like that. But there was a time when there were certain tasks in my life and business that really depleted my energy. And if once we become aware of what those things are, we can switch them. Maybe there's something that takes a lot of energy and you were doing it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's not your time that you have a lot of energy. Maybe you switch it to the morning and do it in the morning. Then it probably takes less time, less effort, less focus, and then put something in the afternoon that takes less energy. So it really is just evaluating, what do you do during the day and how can you maybe better align those tasks that need more energy. For I'm not a morning person, but I'm like a 10 o'clock person. So if I can get something done between 10 and 12, those are the high energy, medium energy things that I get done. But I would never have known what that looked like if I wasn't paying attention.
Paying attention. Great. You say, do find the things that bring your energy back. And I know this one. This one I know because I have my list. I have it on my phone in my notes app. You could do the same, guys, if you feel like this is something you want to do. I have my list of things that are my little go-to things when I feel like my energy is flagging, when I feel like I'm down, and I feel like depression is clawing at me. One of them is, and I've shared this with you before, Jen, looking at pictures of my babies when they were babies, because now my baby is now 8. So don't, if he hears that I was calling him a baby on the show, he's not going to be really happy about that. But Jen, how do you share this particular do with your clients?
So I have a whole list. So I have come up with a list of, what can you do? Not all of them align with me, but I took them from clients. I took them from friends, like what rejuvenates your energy. And so I have a whole list of things. So, what rejuvenates me now may not rejuvenate me in 3 or 4 months. So just always pay attention to what rejuvenates me now, and having a list is optimal because then you don't have to think about it. Because if you have to think about it, you're not going to do it. So have a list of the things that maybe it's top 3 or 5 things just to get started, and know exactly what can you do to rejuvenate your energy.
And then Jen, you talk about having an energy plan.
Yes.
What is an energy plan?
So it just kind of takes everything that we talked about. So it's looking at what depletes your energy, realizing it, right? Evaluating, figuring out, are these things that I get rid of, or are these things that I do a different time, wherever they go. And then the next thing is finding what rejuvenates, because when you're depleted, you now need to raise the battery up. And so what is that thing? Is it going out in the sunlight, which is like my thing to do when it's warmer? When it's the sun just rejuvenate. I like can feel sun on my face, even just thinking about it. But, walking in a snowstorm, walking, out in trails, those are things that people enjoy a lot. And it's very rejuvenating being in nature. And then finally, it's bringing it all together so that you have this plan of, when you do feel depleted, if you have 5 minutes or you have 15 minutes or you have an hour, what are you going to do with your time so that you have a moment to rejuvenate?
We love practical things on this show, Jen. And so we love these 6 practical tips that you've given us, and we're definitely going to implement them. But can you give us just one little piece of homework that we can do to integrate all of this, to really get started with being unbreakable, even if we're introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, wherever we happen to fall?
Yeah. So the one tip that I would give would be, which we haven't talked about, and so I'm going to like interject and put it here, is being able to take the time to breathe. It shifts everything. It shifts, how you feel. You're more grounded. You're clear-headed. It's something that, my watch reminds me to breathe. So you can set a timer and go ahead and just really take a minute, even if it's once a day, to breathe, and it just shifts everything. And I think that gives us the opportunity to even be more patient with ourselves and others. And it really puts us in a position where we're stronger, because we don't have all that junk that's sort of hanging and weighing on us when we're able to breathe.
I do recommend breathing. It's on my list of top 10 things that we should all be doing. It's number one. So, with a bullet. I always pull a card at the beginning of each show just to give us a nice thought for the day, a nice thought for the week. And today, when I was shuffling our cards, this nice, lovely card that says expansiveness is the one that popped out. Does this ping anything for you? What is this evoking for you?
So I love expansion, both physically and even just mentally. So when we were talking about breathing, and it's when we are able to deep breathe, we're able to expand our body. And when we practice it, it expands further. So I feel like what a great way to think about, one, rejuvenating your energy, but also being expansive in our minds, in our physical being. And it just it reminds me of opportunity, and it reminds me of being together and being expansive with others.
Jen, people are going to be watching this and wanting to reach out to you. How can they get to you?
So yes, you can just email me at jenjones@connectandelevate.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jen, for being our special guest today. Thanks for bringing it as far as the teachings go. And I want to say thank you to all of you who are watching. If you're watching virtually on the replay, I'd say come join us live. We're here at 11 a.m. Eastern time every single Tuesday on the Win-Win Women Network. So come join us. Come be a part of this conversation. You'll have a chance to ask questions one-on-one with myself and my guests, but you'll also have an opportunity to share about yourself and your business. And if you feel like, you know what, I want to have these conversations every day, come join us in the Ladies Power Lunch Facebook group, growsmarternotharder.com/Facebook. And come join us live and in person in Farmington, Connecticut on March 20th, where we're going to be having our Ladies Power Lunch Spring Summit. More information about that is at growsmarternotharder.com/ticket. Thanks everybody for joining, and I'll see you all on the next show. Bye everyone.